Hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Red Raptor Writes. I never thought this day would come, but for the first time in nearly a decade, we have fascinating Dead Space news. As I'm sure many of you heard by now, EA's remaking the original classic for the current generation. Well, actually, their studio in Montreal, Motive, is developing it. Not Visceral, of course, like the original since it got shut down back in 2017. As of right now, no official release date has been set, but the remake will come out at the end of 2022. Now, as for me personally, I'm not a huge Dead Space fan. I was too young to appreciate the first game when it came out, but grew a love for it when I got older. The second, I never actually finished despite attempting several playthroughs. And the third, I skipped due to the backlash. So you see, I'm more of a casual fan. I won't consume anything EA throws at me just because they slapped a Dead Space title on it, which is why I want this to be good. I want another survival horror game to love. Due to the disappointing sales of the third installment, I assume there are many others like me, who will play what is good and ignore what has microtransactions. So fingers crossed that Motive gets this one right. When I first heard the news, I was pessimistic, and I'll get to my reservations later, but now I'm feeling hopeful for a change. It feels good. For starters, this is a newer version of the first game, of course. Unless someone royally screws something up, then we shouldn't be getting any of the pitfalls of its sequels. While there were definitely moments of action in Dead Space, it was still predominantly survival horror. You weren't fighting other enemies with guns in an action shooter romp. It's unfortunate that this kind of stuff happens with horror series. Amnesia started off strong, but got significantly less horror focused with each installment. And the same happened with Resident Evil, when it decided to go all in on the action after 4 for a long while. From the trailer, it seems like this isn't the case here. Motive is going back to the original feel of the series. In the same vein, microtransactions will not be returning. EA is restraining their money-grubbing ways. After the success of Jedi Fallen Order, I guess they realized that the whole games as a service and loot box model doesn't need to be crammed into everything to make a profit. As long as you make a great single player experience, good press and word of mouth will spread, giving you a well-earned cash flow. The original Dead Space didn't have a shoehorned multiplayer, microtransactions, or anything like that, yet it's still a beloved classic, although it didn't sell that well either. Fallen Order did though, with over 10 million copies sold. I also gotta appreciate those graphics. The 2008 game looked phenomenal and still holds up to this day due to an incredible amount of detailing and atmosphere. But let's be real, that reveal trailer and gameplay footage looks stunning. There's no way around it. The detail, the fog effects, the lighting, it all looks so good. Their links will be in the description. And lastly, for the positives, a remake means that players who missed out on the first game will get another shot at the Dead Space experience. Not everyone who was able in 2008 got to play it, and those who were too young won't be this time around. Also, more press, more hype, and something actually happening may spark curiosity. For those who haven't played the original, I highly suggest you do. If you can't for some reason, then I hope the remake does it justice. Okay guys, let's talk about those reservations. We know from the mouth of Motive itself that there will be, and I quote, an improved story, characters, gameplay mechanics, and more. Now, I won't pretend that Dead Space is a perfect title with no room for improvement whatsoever, but too many changes would concern me since they can go either way. Do you risk something new that may be better or worse? Or do you leave good enough alone? Motive Studios is taking inspiration from the recent Resident Evil remakes, which again concerns me. The new RE2 isn't the most faithful of adaptations, but is still a great game in my opinion. That's all well and good, but what if it ends up like RE3 Remake? A total mess that completely butchers another one of my favorite horror games. It took everything good about the original, crumpled it up, and tossed it in the garbage. Creative liberties are good as long as they work as improvements, not cutting down what the fans liked and changing for the sake of change. I guess we'll have to wait and see on that one. Another concern I have is with the developers themselves. Motive hasn't done anything in the genre, and what they have developed is shaky at best. EA had them help with the new Star Wars Battlefront 2, which has gotten better over the years, although it was a disaster upon release and still is an inferior product to its classic PS2 counterpart. This was also the team behind Star Wars Squadrons, which I haven't played myself, but released to mediocre reviews. Finally, and most importantly, EA just sucks. Their greed has led them from controversy to controversy to the point where it feels dirty to play any of their games. That's not to mention how they treated Dead Space 3 and Visceral. More action-oriented gameplay, co-op, and microtransactions didn't come from the devs thinking it would improve the series. No, all that came from an over-controlling publisher that wanted to squeeze every cent out of players and appeal to a broader audience. When it comes to EA, the business comes before the art. And I get it, video games have to make money, but to squander the art like that is just sickening. A few years later, Visceral Games was no more because, well, they focused on single player experiences, which, as I've mentioned, EA was not a fan of. Hopefully these creeps can leave good creators alone this time and let me receive an awesome remake. So guys, those are my thoughts on the upcoming Dead Space. Some are good, some are bad. I try to stay realistic and not get swept up in the hype. What do you think? Will Motive Studios pull it off, or will this return be a short-lived disaster? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, if you enjoyed this video, to please leave a like, subscribe, and check out my social media. See you next time.